All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to take a mind-bending look at the literal microscopic engines that run our entire modern world. Every single day, we're surrounded by magical glowing rectangles, autonomous machines, and instant global communication. But underneath all that magic, there's a very specific, carefully engineered physical foundation.
So what if I told you that our modern world is entirely dependent on materials that are actually terrible at conducting electricity? I know, it sounds a bit controversial, maybe even counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. We rely on substances that, in their pure state, barely let an electrical current pass through them at all. But it's exactly that stubbornness, that resistance, that gives us the ultimate superpower, absolute control.
Moving into our first section, 5 spectacular semiconductor facts. This is the science behind the magic.
So, what are these 5 facts we need to know? First up, their conductivity sits perfectly right in the middle. They aren't quite copper, but they aren't rubber either. Second, because they live in that middle ground, they act as microscopic switches, literally flipping from off to on billions of times a second. No way, right? Third, we can actually control this flipping by intentionally adding chemical impurities. This is a process called doping. Fourth, by combining these differently doped materials, we create one-way streets, or PN junctions, for electricity. And fifth, the kicker. We can shrink these structures down so incredibly small that we basically double our computing power roughly every 2 years.
Next up, a brief history of discovery. Let's look at how we went from mere scientific curiosities to modern microchips.
You know what's truly fascinating here? Just how incredibly long it took for us to realize that trace impurities were the secret sauce. Way back in 1833, Michael Faraday noticed silver sulfide was behaving super weirdly when heated. But get this, it wasn't until 1947, over a century later, that scientists finally harnessed this quirk and invented the first working transistor. Then, by the 1950s, we made the massive shift from early materials like germanium over to silicon, and boom, the digital revolution was officially born.
All right, section 3. How do semiconductors actually work? Let's dive into the science of the middle ground.
You can actually visualize this with a super simple experiment. Imagine connecting a battery to a light bulb with a copper wire. The bulb lights up instantly, right? That's because copper is like a wide-open highway. Electrons just speed through freely. Now swap that wire for a rubber band, and nothing. Rubber is a massive brick wall. It completely blocks the flow. Well, semiconductors like pure silicon sit right smack in the middle. At absolute zero, they're total brick walls. But expose them to heat or light, and suddenly they transform into those flowing electron highways. Now, to make silicon truly useful, scientists do something called doping. And no, not that kind. They chemically alter the material's charge distribution. See, in its pure form, silicon is just way too stable. But by baking in just a tiny fraction of another element, something like boron or phosphorus, we disrupt that stability in a highly controlled and honestly unbelievably useful way. Think of it exactly like a game of musical chairs. If we manipulate the number of players or the empty seats, we get total control over the flow of the game. So, when we add an impurity that brings extra electrons, we call it N-type. Think of that as adding extra players to the game. If we add an impurity that's missing an electron, it creates a hole. That's P-type, like adding an extra empty chair. When you sandwich those extra players and empty chairs together, the players can only rush into the chairs in one single direction. And just like that, you've created a microscopic one-way valve for electricity.
Moving on to section 4, real-life uses and examples. These really are superpowers in your pocket.
Now, while good old silicon heavily dominates the computing space, we actually use entirely different compound semiconductors for other specific jobs. For instance, silicon carbide is tough enough to handle the massive voltages needed to power your electric car. Meanwhile, gallium arsenide is perfectly tuned for those high-speed frequencies we need for global communications and cell phone towers.
Let's talk transistors. By turning on and off literally billions of times a second, these tiny things process the ones and zeros that make up everything you do on a computer. Every single video you stream, every text you fire off, every game you play, it's all just billions of these microscopic musical chair valves flipping open and closed in perfectly synchronized harmony. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Then we have diodes, which act as those one-way valves for power. And when they're engineered in a very specific way, they give us the highly efficient LED lighting we use everywhere today. Instead of just passing current along, the energy that gets released when an electron drops into an empty hole can actually be emitted as a photon, so we are literally creating light directly out of electricity.
And guess what? This exact same science is the key to our renewable energy future. We're talking about capturing sunlight and turning it directly into a steady electrical current. When sunlight hits a specially designed semiconductor, the energy from the light physically knocks electrons right out of their resting state, sending them rushing down a wire to power our homes. It's the same fundamental principle, just acting in reverse.
Finally, Section 5. Let's look at the challenges and future limits, because yes, we are hitting a physical wall.
So, the more computing power we pack into these incredibly tiny spaces, the more heat we generate. Thermal management is becoming a massive, massive bottleneck. Just think about the heat your own laptop kicks out when you're loading a heavy application or game. Now multiply that by the scale of massive server farms powering global artificial intelligence. Dissipating all that thermal energy without literally melting the silicon is easily one of the greatest engineering challenges we face today.
And we have to talk about how these chips are made. It requires environments cleaner than a hospital operating room. I do need to issue a standard disclaimer here. The fabrication process involves hazardous chemicals and extreme radiation environments. Human exposure to the gases and acids used to etch these microscopic patterns is fiercely toxic to human biology. So, building our modern world requires incredibly strict medical and safety protocols.
There's also the issue of size. As we desperately try to make things faster, we are literally running out of physical room. We've been shrinking these switches for decades, doubling computing power every 2 years, which you probably know as Moore's law. But guys, a transistor can only get so small before we hit the size of single atoms. At that scale, normal physics just starts to break down, and an electron can basically teleport right through a closed switch. It's a wild phenomenon called quantum tunneling.
So it really leaves you wondering, once we physically cannot make silicon any smaller, what mind-bending material is going to power the next century of human innovation? Are we going to fully harness the weirdness of quantum mechanics? Or hey, maybe we'll even grow organic biological computers. Whatever happens, the science of the middle ground, the semiconductor, has permanently changed human history. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible technology hidden right inside your pocket.